done tripping, I'm tripping, I've been sipping, that's how I can trip.
Radio at its best. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, RELAKS, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all things that is happening right now in the UK, and I hope you guys are having an amazing Monday because, hey, I'm having the best time of my life. And if you guys want to tell me how your Mondays are going, well, hit me up and let me know. 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. And also, don't forget, you can download our app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, though, diving into the situation right now, what is going on? We're going to be talking about a lot of things that is going on in the UK, with the whole UK and the EU situation, the whole Brexit, post-Brexit situation, and how Northern Ireland right now is facing most of the problems. And we're going to be talking about that and a whole lot more. We're going to be talking about the United Nations, how their virtual talks are making little progress when it comes to climate change. Yeah, the concerns that we have right now with regards to climate change. And we're going to be talking about all that and getting into the topic that I want to talk about you with right now. Well, the situation with the COVID booster vaccine plan to come in the next few weeks. This is what Matt Hancock has been talking about. Yeah, the health minister for the UK has been talking about this. So plans for a COVID booster jab program in autumn will set out in the next few weeks. This is what Matt Hancock is promising right now. He's promising a lot of the things, and this is what he is saying that he's going to be scheduling. And we're looking at all this. The health secretary did say that ministers were waiting for results from the trials of different combinations of vaccines. That's right. They'll be talking about all these things. And it comes after doctors and NHS trusts said planning for a booster rollout must start now as it involves bigger challenges. So there's a lot of these obstacles and challenges that they're facing at the moment. And, that is a rise for concern. So the issue, they say that, many questions need answering, including how long immunity from the original COVID jabs lasts. So the issues of whether, children will be vaccinated will also remain, health leaders said. So this is, with that regards, they're going to be talking about all these things and making sure that this comes into light. And Mr. Hancock did go on to say that, we're currently trialing with a combination of jabs are the most effective. So right now, in the next few weeks, when we get the trial data through on what's most effective combination to have, then we will set out the details for the booster program for the autumn. So they're saying once, they've done with the trialing and making sure, which works with which, well, that's the time when they will release all of these and they will, inform the public with regards to what jab is more effective during the autumn. So amongst the ongoing trials is the UK's Cove Boost trial, which is testing different combinations of third doses across England. So a senior government source, he did went on to say that the UK will also benefit from these new vaccines from Novavax and Valneva, which are also waiting approval from the UK's medicines regulator. So right now, there are two other vaccines that will be coming on board into the UK. So these are the Novavax vaccine and the Valneva rather. So these two vaccines are going to be making an appearance. So right now we already have, adding up the arsenal to our fight against COVID. So right now we have the vaccines, that is the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, the Moderna vaccine, and the Janssen vaccine. So after that, these are the other two vaccines that will hopefully get approved in the next couple of weeks. So far, nearly 60% of the UK 60% of the adult population, rather, have had 2 jabs of the vaccine, meaning they are fully vaccinated. So they've completely gotten both doses of the jabs. And more than 4 in 5 adults have had their first doses. So people have been rushing to get their vaccines in recent days, with more than 1 million jabs booked on Friday and Saturday in England after vaccinations opened to all over 18s. So right now, ministers have been repeatedly saying all these things. It's great to see the numbers rise from what they were initially. And looking at all of that, looking at how most of the population, 60%, that is a staggering big number. Another 4 weeks. I mean, there is a delay for 4 weeks. Hopefully by then, we will get to that point where at least, that number will hopefully skyrocket to another at least 75% to 80%. And if we get there, hell, that is something we can look forward to. And, we don't have to worry about the lockdowns lifting being delayed wait any longer. So ministers, like I said, they have repeatedly said that vaccination is the way out of lockdown. And the delay to the lockdown right now in England from the 21st of June until the 19th of July was partly to allow more people to get vaccinated. So that was the whole point of this, to make sure, for 4 weeks delay. The main reason is because they want to get more people vaccinated. Because right now we are having another variant, another kind of virus, and we have to combat that. And we don't really know what exactly, but at least we have information with that regards, that we know this is more transmissible than before. So what are we going to do? Well, we're going to make sure that more people in the country get vaccinated. That is the only way. That is the best way, in my opinion, to make sure that we come out of this unscathed. So looking at all these things, some restrictions have been eased on Monday, though. So the original date for the lockdown ending, and what some had dubbed Freedom Day. A lot of people have figured that day, the 21st of June was going to be Freedom Day. But, things happen, and then they had to push it down for 4 weeks. I mean, it's still, I feel the time we do get freedom, a proper freedom, is when we can all get out of the country and make sure, we can travel around, and everyone in the world does not have corona anymore. I feel like that's a major win right there. And the number of guests at wedding is no longer limited to 30. So a lot of people who have been planning their weddings and trying to keep it small, well, now unfortunately you will have to make it bigger. So there is also that. So visiting arrangements for healthcare, for home care are also changing. Children can go on overnight trips in groups of 30, and pilots of large events like Euro 2020 games will continue. So a lot of these big things that is happening right now. There has been a ease in the lockdown, but at the same time, we're still not completely there. We still have to wear our masks. We still have to make sure that we stay safe, and we still have to make sure that we try to maintain social distance as much as possible. So also the situation in Wales, rules are also being lifted slightly. If you're taking a look at all the things that is going on in Wales right now, including the COVID capacity in the country. Yeah, that's right. So including the COVID capacity restrictions for these music and comedy, and the limits on wedding changes in line with a venue size. So in Northern Ireland, though, looking at that, well, a planned easing of restrictions had been pushed back to at least the 5th of July. And current rules in Scotland are expected to be extended until mid-July. So everyone's looking forward to at least the middle of July to make sure that the whole of UK, we can celebrate that sense of normalcy coming back. Hopefully by then, at least we'll get more and more people vaccinated until the due date. So looking at all these things, the average number of daily confirmed cases as of yet of the coronavirus is now rising in the UK, with a further 9,284 announced by the government. And this was back in Sunday. So this was just yesterday, and they announced 9,284 new cases. So a further 6 deaths were also announced recently. So unfortunately, there were a bunch of people who did pass away, and that is unfortunate. So looking at all these situations right now, there was also, talk about, how Chris Hobson, back in Monday, the head of the NHS providers, which represents the NHS hospitals and trusts in England, and the Royal College of GPs chairman Martin Marshall, said the 19th of July target to offer a first dose to all adults was not so much a finishing line as a staging post. So yeah, the government has previously promised that there will be boosters, and there will be a lot of these programs for the COVID jab, but the health leaders said the prospect of a yearly COVID vaccine would bring arguably greater challenges. And it was important to know, a lot of these things, when it comes to vaccines and when it comes to things like that, we have to remember, there are important factors with that regard. So, just thinking that the vaccines are going to cause a solution is not really the answer to this. There is going to be a rise in cases right now. And we have to understand that, the way things are going, well, we have to ask these couple of questions. How long will the protection from the original double doses last? And will these boosters be necessary in the future? Will these be required is what we want to know. Because in the future, vaccines change over time, viruses change over time. So we have to know, okay, after we take these 2 doses, how long is this, these pair of doses going to last us? How long is this protection going to last us? And if it is going to last us lifetime, let us know. Or if it's just going to be a yearly thing, will we be needing to use these booster vaccines is another question, that we'll come up across. And will people get the same vaccines as the original ones they got? So when it comes to, down to the chemical formula of these vaccines, and will it be the same kind of dose That's what they're asking. The same content when it comes to the vaccines, or will it change as well? And how will the tweaking of these vaccines for new variants work? How are these going to work? How are we going to handle this situation like that for that particular case? And will the COVID vaccines be tweaked every year? That's also something, that they're asking. These are the questions, the healthcare line, the leaders are talking about and, are discussing. And will children be vaccinated? If so, when, where, and how? Because of the need to get consent. So, because there's also that problem as well. We got to make sure, there's also the talk of getting children vaccinated. So, but that also causes a lot of rise in a lot of challenges as well. Because, we will, if children do need to get vaccinated, we will have to know when, where, and how, because we need to get consent from a lot of these parents as well. So that's also a hurdle right there. So they also said, combining the COVID and flu vaccine rollouts, for example, a COVID jab in one arm and a flu jab in the other needed to be explored, but that would make the rollout more complex. So yeah, there is, talk with that regards, of what is, what is being discussed. And it just shows, right now, we don't really know the effects of these vaccines when it comes to the next couple of years, maybe the next couple of decades. How will these interact with a normal, ordinary flu jab? Can we do it on the same arm? These are the things, that these are the constructive questions that they are asking, and they want to know, will these be answered? And if so, how, when? These are the questions. And they also said that they needed to be there needed to be investments in proper vaccination venues rather than relying on these sports stadiums or community facilities. So what they're trying to say is we have to have centers when it comes to this. We have to have proper centers, vaccination centers, where we can go and get vaccinated professionally by people who work there professionally as well. So these are, things that they want to start. And Mr. Hobson went on to say that since flu jab starts in September, we need ministers and the JCVI, which is the Joint Committee on Vaccination and Immunization, to really answer those questions as quickly as possible. So we're ready to administer the jabs we need to in the autumn. So Mr. Hobson and Mr. Marshall said they needed to be a sustainable approach to vaccination, which meant the NHS could carry on vaccinated while also doing its other work as well. So, there's these talks as well when it comes to this regards, and they are asking questions rather than coming up with solutions. But health leaders have identified a major challenge for the coming winters. Although they, like I said, they've been asking these questions, but they should have, when instead they should have been looking for answers. But these are important questions as well that we need to, tackle. So offering a first dose to all adults by the 19th of July is seen as a first step in a long haul with COVID. So given that booster vaccines will be needed, GPs and NHS trusts want to know the logistics of what will happen and what, this complex procedure on, what's going to happen when the winter comes in. How are we going to process this? How are the people going to process this? These are very important things they want to know. And they want to see how doctors and their practice teams have gone the extra mile, that to deliver these COVID vaccination programs, but they want to ensure day-to-day patient care is not compromised. Because in case you guys don't know, there is a backlog of operations and people, undergoing these surgeries, whether it's minor or major surgeries, but most of them are like cataracts, for example, or total shoulder replacement. Those kind of things, the simple kind of things. Well, they want to know, okay, as long as we don't have a backlog of these and we don't delay these important things as well, how is this going to work? And they want to know all of these answers. So they ask a lot of questions, and hopefully the government will find a way to answer those. I am hopeful for their answer as well, the way how they're going to tackle this. Hopefully Matt Hancock can come up with an answer. But hey, with that being said, if you have anything you want to say or you want to tell me, well, hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right, And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 3:30. A good afternoon.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful? Hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. Got me thinking, you want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts mainly, one, because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. That's very important, right? Because you want cars,
very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves and perhaps a shouldn't be saying this on air, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Radio.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relaks Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and entertained all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. You know, we're going to be talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK. There's a lot of this talk happening. And ministers have been urging to act now on funding reforms. Yeah, this is with regards to the social care issues in the country. And if you're wondering who this is, I'm Nick, keeping you company all the way till 6. So if you have anything you want to say or you want to be part of the show, well, it's easy. All you got to do is hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. And you can always hit me up with anything you want to say. You know, you want to talk about the weather or what your plans are, you know, for this coming week. What are your plans or what are you going to do? Well, let me know. And also, you know, don't forget to download our app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, you know, we're getting back to the topic at hand right now, how ministers have been urging to act now on this on the funding reforms. So social care organizations have urged ministers to publish long-awaited plans to overhaul how the sector in England is funded within a month. And they said on on Boris Johnson right now. They've been talking about Boris Johnson. They said, okay, we need to act now and set out proposals before Parliament's summer recess begins on the 22nd of July. So there have been reports the Prime Ministers would host a meeting this week with these senior ministers to discuss reform ideas, and the government has pledged to publish funding plans by the end of the year. And in a letter to the Prime Minister, well, 7 bodies representing those providing and using social care said the time to deliver reform is now. Right now is when we're supposed to be delivering reform. So what is going on? And they're saying we have to act now as much as possible. And with that regard, they went on to say, as long as term changes to funding, they also urged an immediate cash injection to cover short-term costs incurred during the COVID pandemic. So, these are things, that they have been considering apart. And, they've been talking about all these things, and they have been urging the Prime Minister, to act now, especially right now with the situation going before the COVID situation goes out of proportions and before summer recess hits. Well, that is between the time of the 22nd of July. So they want the ministers to start acting now. These are what the social care organizations have been, pressing the government right now to do. And councils in England should get money to invest in new technology, they said, and there should be a new idea for staff working in the sector. So the government has been criticized for not announcing new bill on social media care and social care. Sorry, apologize for that. Rather, social care funding at the start of the parliamentary year back in May. So the government, they've been criticized for this, and they're saying, okay, you're not been announcing all these things when it comes to social care funding. And when he entered Downing Street in 2019 of July, Mr. Johnson vowed he made promises back then to fix the funding crisis with a clear plan that we have prepared. These are his exact words. With a clear plan we have prepared is what he said. But reports suggest that discussions are still ongoing within the government about the potential costs of changes, which could run into the billions, is what is being right now we are worried about. And in England, cost of care is pretty expensive, and the social care is generally not provided for free, which is supposed to actually happen. So typically only those with savings and assets worth less than £23,000, £20,250 rather, can get help from their council. So there is no overall limit on costs, meaning thousands every year end up selling their homes to pay. So personal care, such as help with washing and dressing, is free in Scotland for those assessed by their local authorities as requiring it. So if they require it, well, they will get it for free. And there are still homes rather that have to contribute towards accommodation costs as well. So those homes, although they do get to these private homes, well, they still need to pay for accommodation. So some care costs are capped in Wales, and home is free for the over 75s in Northern Ireland. So despite a series of reform proposals put forward, plans for a wider overhaul of the funding have been scuppered under different parties in recent decades. So plans to introduce a lifetime cap on costs were put into law back in 2014 following a commission chaired by former UK statistics chief Sir Andrew Dilnot. However, they were delayed. These plans to introduce this whole lifetime cap on costs were delayed and then eventually ditched under ex-Prime Minister David Cameron. And his successor, Theresa May, later suggested and then abandoned a form of the proposal back in 2017. So there were promises about this particular regard, and they were talking about this, but then these were abandoned overall by both prime ministers, in the past decade. And in May last year, it was found out that before the coronavirus outbreaks, ministers had been considering proposals to introduce a capped care costs in England. So speaking on Monday, Sir Andrew said there was a general awareness within the government that we've got to get something done here. And the policy choice over how to fix the system seems pretty much to have been made already. So these are not things that were only on the back burner, but rather they have been considering their options and have been discussing about this and have been talking about it and, coming to the point of where they were, they decided when and how they're going to do it, and they've been planning to implement this as as quick as possible, and it seems that they are talking about this. So the policy on over how to fix the system seems pretty much to have been made already, and it might seem frustrating that after all this time the changes are likely to be those that are mooted years ago. But the political decision, however, on how to pay for fixing the social care system in England has not been yet going. So Sir Andrew did go on to say that as well as a cap, there should be a significant increase in the generosity of the means test for support. So yeah, these are things that they're saying that we need to further when it comes to that. There has to be an increase when it comes to the generosity for these means tests for support. So he said his plan would cost an extra 3 to 5 billion pounds per year on top of an extra 5 billion pounds the Treasury would have to spend anyway due to England's aging population. So urging ministers to be generous, he did say that the overall cost was not huge compared to wider public spending and would have seen a massive impact on individuals. And urging the Prime Minister to grasp the nettle, former Health Secretary Jeremy Hunt went on to say that the initial costs of the Dilnot-style changes would be easily manageable. And, he has been getting answers and advice from these people, and they've been talking about it. So speaking to reporters on Monday, Mr. Johnson said the government would be bringing forward some good plans in due course. And what these plans entail, we don't really know as of yet. There's not been any specifics mentioned, but these are just shows, these are very important factors that we need to address as well. When it comes to these particular things, these factors have to come into consideration with all of that regard. So it just shows, with the current situation going on, hopefully the government will find a way and a stratagem rather, to put forward all of these things that they have been discussing and they have been planning to put forward. I mean, these are something to look towards as time goes by. Hopefully the government will find a fix towards this issue when it comes to social care. But yeah, we can't really say with the pandemic situation going on, and how we've cut the UK funding, the funding for the aid, international aid. When it comes to international aid, we have cut fundings. So we've cut from a 0.7 funding to 0.5% of our GDP. We've cut a lot of this money. So I'm saying, hey, if we've cut a lot of those monies, why can't we invest in this as well? Because these are people in our country. We have to make sure that we focus on them and we take care of them and make sure that we protect and safeguard the people who did, their best to, to bring us to this time and day that we are in right now. I mean, it's just some things, that you have to think about as we go along. Hopefully, the government will find some way to sort this issue out and, make sure that social care organizations receive the funding and the increase that they so desperately need, especially now with the situation of the pandemic going around in the country. And, with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be talking about a whole lot more. Also, like I said, don't forget, you can download the apps, our Relaks Radio app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And also don't forget, you can check us out on social media. We're pretty much big on Facebook and Instagram. And you also don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow us on YouTube. That's right. We go live on all of these platforms. And also don't forget to check us out on Twitter, where we update you guys with the latest tweets. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real short break, and we will be right back after this. And taking a look at your time right now, it is 3:43. Good evening.
Again, but now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, and when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
You know, he'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
Hey, that's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you know, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of lose. You know, when it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. You know how much. A lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, you know, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. You know, for the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that is going on. And yeah, we're discussing about how, the coronavirus situation in the country is at a rise and how the delay has been going on and how, Matt Hancock has been talking about, pushing forward booster jabs is what he was talking about. And he's saying that this will happen in the next coming of weeks. And they have been experimenting with a third dose, that is the booster jabs. And the Prime Minister right now is saying that research plan to make UK science superpower. So this is, he's saying, because with the situation of the coronavirus happening, well, they figure out, okay, you know what, we're going to make sure that we beat this. And to do that, we'll have to be a superpower when it comes to beating this virus. And yeah, if you guys are wondering who this is, my name is Nick, keeping you company all the way until 6 p.m. And hey, if you want to be a part of the show, all you got to do is pretty simple. Hit me up, call me. The numbers are 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. And also don't forget, you can check us out on our social media pages. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube page. Yeah, that's right. Follow, like, share. Make sure you guys spread that love. We're talking about all things that is going on in the UK and what is happening right now. This is Relax Radio, Relaks. And yeah, getting back to the topic at hand, the Prime Minister right now, he has been talking about all these things and he has been discussing about this particular matter. And he says he wants to make the UK and his plans. The Prime Minister has set out plans to cement the UK's place as a science superpower, is what they are saying. These things are saying, and it shows that the Prime Minister does have his big plans as of yet, and he has been discussing about this. And he wants to make sure that this happens in the country right now. But we'll have to see. Boris Johnson has announced the increase in research budgets. So, yeah, he did say something that this is going to be happening. And he made sure that the budgets were increased and would be spent. So, Sir Patrick Vallance, the chief scientific advisor, will lead a new office for science and technology strategy. And an expert on research policy said the move risks taking decision-making out of the scientists' hands. Labour said government cuts had damage research. So the Prime Minister is said to want to build on the success of the UK's coronavirus vaccine program and apply it to other areas as well. So right now they want to make sure, the Prime Minister wants to make sure, okay, this is how we, our program, if it's a success, we want to make sure that we can implement it to other parts in the country and to other areas as well. These includes, developing a technology to reach net zero carbon emissions and curing cancer rather than simply treating it. These are things, these are high ambitions. We have been having these kind of emissions back to 2002, I think, where it was when they first made these kind of announcements. And hopefully these are ambitions that will bear fruit in the future. But let's see, how it goes. And Mr. Johnson said during a visit to the laboratory in Hertfordshire on Monday, he said there can't have been a time in modern memory where every family has owned so much to British scientists in developing a vaccine. And they say, he's calling science the great liberator, he added. And I've long believed that we can invest more in science as a country, and we want to use that public investment to trigger waves of private investment. So right now he's saying, okay, these are how our plans are, and they want to monetize when it comes to science and technology. But then this is something that is normal. This has always been going on since time immemorial. And the government plans to put its money where its mouth is, as it talks about plans to reinforce the UK's position as a global science leader. So it aims to increase spending from nearly £15 billion a year to £22 billion by 2025. Now, these are the plans they are, making. So by the time 2025 comes, these are the things that they want to make sure that they've done. And the state aim is to use the extra money to tackle societal challenges such as the impact of climate change and leveling up across the country and boost prosperity around the world. So as ever, though, with greater budgets comes greater ministerial supervision. So in a form of new committees, and these are all chaired by the Prime Minister. So on one hand, it puts science at the heart of the government, but on the other, there's a concern that there will be more political control on research budgets. So you have to think about it. Like I said, if the government is getting involved in all these things and they're putting their finger in these kind of issues, they're increasing the budget. That just shows that there will be more political involvement, political agendas. So when those tend to rise, there will be more complications with that particular regard. And that's just the case, and a lot of these things that could be a lot of these money will be being diverted to a lot of the pet projects rather than spent on what is currently independently judged by experts to be the best science, as is currently the case. So the state aim of the new Office for Science and Technology strategy will be to push forward the government's research priorities, and it will also identify alongside the other roles and identify resources needed to secure the UK's science capability. So right now these are just things that is being discussed, and they want to make sure that they get to this point, and hopefully this will happen. So Sir Patrick also will take up the position of the new National Technology Advisor with his other roles included. So these include chairing a new National Science and Technology Council to help harness and research for the public good. And he said the changes would put science and technology right at the heart of policymaking. And he said he looked forward to helping identify cutting edge research and technologies. But James Wisdom, who is a digital science professor of research policy at Sheffield University, said the reorganization carried risks. So ministers and civil servants might have a bigger say over directions and priorities. So they will say, okay, you will have to prioritize this project over this particular project. And that is very unfortunate that will happen. So these also, raise a lot of these questions, and they say, okay, at the expense of researchers themselves, they're going to be doing a lot of these things who are typically better placed to know where opportunities lie. So it also raises a lot of these questions, like I said, of how much of extra investment that the government has promised by 2025 will be channeled towards Whitehall projects, and how much will go through the science funding body, UK Research and Innovation, and into the mainstream of university research funding. So right now, there isn't a definitive answer with this particular regard. They've not come down to a particular point where they will, address and talk about this. So like I said, it's great to see that the government is trying to have a handle on this particular situation, and they are looking to do something about this and increase the funding, the so-called funding that we really desperately need right now when it comes to the science project. Because look at this. Right now, the whole country is going through a pandemic. If we've spent more money on research than we've done on a lot of the other projects, well, these are things we could have avoided. And it's just a saying, that looking at all this, but also we'll have to understand that just because the government is investing big amounts into these projects, and they want to invest into the research facility, there is the problem of what projects, the project selectivity, rather, what is going to happen when they pick a project over the other project, they will pick, sometimes an important project will be oversighted because of a particular project that a particular minister wants to get done. So yeah, these are things and these are worries that they have. So Chi Onwurah, the MP, Labour Shadow's science minister, said that research cuts this year had damaged UK science. And she went on to explain that ministers have cut the budget for science this year, leaving researchers and programs in the lurch, and medical research charities have been left to fend for themselves during the pandemic. So more government structures cannot disguise the fact the government has no long-term plan for the UK science and is letting our country researchers down. So Boris Johnson, blowing his own trumpet, this is what they're saying, won't protect the UK status as a science superpower. Only a proper plan backed with long-term investments can do that. And this is something like that can move forward, and we can do this in the future. Hopefully these are things, that they want to adopt, coming with the days. And like I said, the minister has been talking about all these things, and they are looking for ways to invest. And they said they will increase from, like we were discussing earlier, they will increase it from 15% to 22%. I mean, that is a huge margin right there. I mean, the government giving you $15 billion a year to $22 billion pounds rather by 2025. Well, these are numbers and figures that is astounding. It's astronomically amazing that we can have something like this and we can invest more into the country. I mean, hey, you guys tell me what you guys think. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852 473 473. That's right. Those are the numbers. You can always hit me up, call me, let me know what you guys think about this particular topic. And is the government, actually having another agenda in mind when they're doing this? I mean, you can tell me, you can pop me and hit me up with any of the things that you think might be going on behind the scenes. And with that being said, I'm going to be taking a little break behind the scenes, but don't go anywhere. We're going to be right back after this, taking a look at your time right now. It is 4 on the dot. Good evening. Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you'll interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
done tripping. I'm tripping. I've been sipping. That's how I control.
Radio at its best. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, Relaks, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you company and keeping you on a ride all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're going to be talking about all things that is going on. And yeah, we were discussing on how the issue right now, how the UK and the Prime Minister Boris Johnson has been talking about spending more research money into the UK and into the science fields when it comes to that particular regard. Well, these are things that they are talking about. And these are just discussions that is going on with that particular matter. And but looking at all these things right now, the biggest issue is the aid cuts. Yeah, how these aid cuts have been happening, and how there have been talks about this particular thing, and there's not been really much effort or effect to that particular matter on how the UK has been handling the situation. And with these foreign aid cuts as well, they've seen a lot of these lives affected. And there's been talk about how the UK and right now the situation, like I said, the aid cuts for foreign, and they've said that this is getting devastating, and it has been hitting them really hard. And looking at all these things, they said that this is a real blow to the country. And you might be asking, where all these money is going to, and why do we feel the impact? Who feels these impacts? Well, a lot of these charities say UK aid cuts harm poor communities already reeling from the COVID-19 and could hamper efforts to curb climate change. So right now there has been talk about this particular matter, and this has been a topic of utmost importance, and there has been a lot of criticism when it comes to the government for them doing even something like this and bringing something like this up. And millions of people will have been left at risk, or will be left at risk of death and disability after Britain's halted funding against a group of debilitating disease in the world's poorest nation. So this is what the World Health Organization has said. And as Britain comes under pressure to roll back deep cuts to overseas aid spending. So Chancellor Rishi Sunak announced Britain would slash overseas aid from 0.7% to 0.5% of its gross national income this year. So in order to free up more cash for domestic spending in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. And the move will cut about £4 billion, that is, in spending, with some programs such as the Accelerating the Sustainable Control and Elimination of Neglected Tropical Diseases, or in other words, also called ASCEND, health program cuts completely. So tens of thousands will die needlessly as a result of the decision to end ASCEND programs early, said the WHO in the latest series of warnings about the human impact of these cuts. So why is Britain committed to spending money on these aids? So like I said, back in the day, in 1970, well, the UK, Britain rather, pledged to spend 0.7% of its national income on AIDS as part of a national United Nations pact. So it is amongst the 30 countries, the 30 wealthy countries, including Germany and Japan, that have vowed to meet this commitment each year. And in 2015, Britain enshrined in law that 0.7% of its income must be spent on aid. So right now, they said investing less than 1% of our national income in aid is creating a safer, wealthier, and more secure world, is what their government website explaining why it spends money on overseas aid. So in 2020, Britain spent around £14.5 billion on aid, meeting the 0.7% United Nations target, according to preliminary data released in April. However, this was a decrease of the £712 million compared to 2019 due to a reduction of the country's gross national income. So do other countries make these 0.7 commitments? You might be wondering, why is the UK only the country doing this? Well, in fact, other countries do this. Several countries have exceeded the UN aid target, including Denmark, which is 0.73%, Luxembourg, which is 1.2%, Norway, which is 1.11%, and Sweden, which is 1.14%, according to the 2020 data by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, or the OECD or the OSID. So they've been talking about this. But it's also funny to see that, the countries that do invest in this are of the Scandinavian side. The Scandinavian countries are the countries that have invested this much more than the UK. So in terms of overall spending, well, the United States is the biggest aid donor, spending $35.5 billion in 2020, followed by Germany, which is $28.4 billion, Britain, $18.6 billion, Japan, $16.3, and France, $14.1 billion on aid spending. So they spend a lot of money when it comes to aid organizations. So despite the pandemic, official statements assistance in 2020 rose by 3.5% compared to 2019, the highest figure on record. This is what the OECD has said. And where does the UK aid money go? Right now, we're talking about how these other countries are investing, how they are putting money, and how they might even be putting more than the UK. But my question, it could even be your question: where does this aid money go to? Well, the top 5 countries receiving UK's aid in 2019 were Pakistan, Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Nigeria, with almost all the money going to countries in Africa and Asia, according to the official data published last September. So last September, they said these are the 5 countries that have been receiving our aid. And number 1 on the list is Pakistan, then Ethiopia, Afghanistan, Yemen, and Nigeria. And the rest of the money goes to African and Asian countries as well. So Britain has spent £1.5 billion on humanitarian assistance, mostly in Yemen, Syria, and Bangladesh, government statistics have showed. So the UN describes war-torn Yemen as the world's biggest humanitarian crisis, with 80% of the population reliant on this aid. So it's unfortunate. You can see that 80% of the population, that is almost all of the people in the country, depend on the aid given by the UN. So the coronavirus pandemic, economic decline, flood, escalating armed conflict, and a severe aid funding shortage have been rising the possibility of famine in Yemen. So Britain has spent around £1.4 billion on health projects, including medicinal research and family planning and infectious disease control globally. And with that, I'm saying, like, looking at all these things, these countries have been receiving the bulk of the aid support. And looking at all of these things, Pakistan, when you look at the graph back in 2019, the top 10 countries that have received UK aid spending money, and that was Pakistan, which had £305 million they have received in aid. And Ethiopia had £300 million. And looking at that, Afghanistan had $292 million. Yemen took £260 million in aid funding. Nigeria, 258, Bangladesh, 256 million pounds, Syria, 223 million pounds, and South Sudan, 207, Democratic Republic of Congo, 185, and Somalia, 176 million pounds. So these are just the top 10 countries back in 2019 who were receiving these aid funding. So right now, these are the countries they're gonna be the countries that will be hit the worst and the most when it comes. They will be the countries that will be impacted by the loss in UK funding. So how could recipients of the UK aid be impacted? Well, the AIDS groups say that reducing the aid budget would harm the world's poorest, hinder climate change and climate action, and damage Britain's reputation as a leader in international development. So looking at all these things, Bond, it's basically a network of UK development agencies, said humanitarian aid will be slashed by around 40%, though it is still unclear which countries will be affected at the moment. Right now, there has been talks about this particular matter. There has been discussion about which countries will get, but we won't really know until they set it in stone. And looking at all this, some humanitarian groups have shared details of heavy cuts to programs as well. So the United Nations Reproductive Health Agency, or the UNFPA, said the UK was slashing 154 million pounds. That is 214.5 million pounds, $5 million, right? A commitment to just 23 million pounds this year. So 154 to 23 million pounds. I'm telling you, there's a lot of these countries will be affected heavily by these losses. So that loss of funding is likely to lead to an extra 7 million unattended pregnancies, 2 million unsafe abortions, and 23,500 maternal deaths, according to analysis from family planning charity MSI Reproductive Choices on how the cuts would impact its services. So more than 150 million pounds have been withdrawn from programs fighting neglected tropical disease, or the NTDs, said in a coalition of aid and research organizations, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So yeah, right now there has been talk about all these things and how these cuts will be affecting these countries. And looking at all these things, the morale of the countries have been greatly affected. And they did say that the UK will slash funding for life-saving water as well, sanitation and hygiene projects in developing nations by more than 80%. A move that charities have criticized given the importance of sanitation under COVID-19. So at a time when the UK should be leading the international community in responding to the climate crisis ahead of the climate summit, it is slashing aid to communities on the front line of that crisis, said Kevin Watkin, the CEO of Save the Children, in a statement, along with 200 other charities as well. And they've been talking about this with this particular regard. And the UK's hard-won reputation for international leadership is in tatters at the moment, because they, like I said, they've cut on a lot of the people's requests with that regard. And there has been a struggle because of this, and people have been undergoing a lot of problems with this particular regard. So right now, the Norwegian Refugee Council said cuts could exacerbate crisis in Yemen, Syria, South Sudan, Somalia, and the Republic of Congo, the Democratic Republic of Congo rather. So these are the countries that will be affected by this. So why does Britain's government say it's changing the way aid money is spent? Well, they have a lot of reasons. And if you look at it right now, Britain is reviewing foreign defense and security policies, seeking to define a new role for itself in a world after leaving the European Union. So this is all after the Brexit situation. So last June, it merged its diplomatic and aid departments to form the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So charity said scrapping its development office, the DFID risks money being diverted into address foreign policies interests rather than alleviating a lot of these impoverished nations, which itself fuels migrations and insecurity. So Britain's foreign minister Dominic Raab said the pandemic had had shown how these security, prosperity, development, and foreign policies were inextricably linked to each other, interlinked. So all of these things were just interlinked to each other. And they say, okay, if this gets affected, well, the whole scale, the whole cogwheel, the whole grand scheme of things will get affected. So these are things that they've pointed out and they've made sure to discuss and broach upon. So with that regards, like I said, the government is facing a lot of backlash when it comes to reduction of the aid funding. When it comes to international and foreign funding and foreign aid, well, they have been receiving a lot of criticism, even from Theresa May as well. She spoke about this, and a lot of the MPs also in Parliament have been on a 50-50 fence when it comes to this particular matter in regards. And we got to see is hopefully they say that it is a temporary cut. It's not going to be permanent. We'll only find out as we move along and as time moves along. Let's see how it goes. But with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break and taking a look at your time right now. It is 4:16. Good evening. Climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that will improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there, You're quite
I mean,
right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh. Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah. At
least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter. Yeah, these are my only intentions.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio, and we're talking about all things that is going on right now in the UK. And with that particular matter, there's a lot of things that we have been discussing as the day has been moving by, and it is a crazy Monday. I mean, it is a Monday. There has been talks of what is going on, and there's a lot of things happening. And looking at the situation right now, Greater Manchester, the clean air zone plans have been moving forward. So right now they have been moving forward about this particular regard, and they are discussing this they are highlighting these things that they're going to be doing in the next coming weeks. So this is all part of the plans to get the net zero emissions by the time 2050 hits. Hopefully this is something that we want to move forward as as we are going along across the couple of decades, that hopefully we get to that point where we can commit to this and make sure that this is 100% effective. And if you're wondering who this is, I am Nick, keeping you company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. Hit me up, call me. The numbers are 07852-473-473. You can always hit me up and text me, or if you want to say something, always feel free. Drop me a little bit of those likes and comments on our page as well. That is on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and follow. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day and every day. And with that said, getting back to the topic at hand, and that is, the plans have, to charge high polluting vehicles to drive across Greater Manchester are expected to come into force next year. So by next year, this is the things that they are doing already. They're making their plans, they're making their moves, and their government is making their decisions right now. They're making sure that we go forward with this. And vans, buses, coaches, taxis, private hire vehicles, and lorries that fail to meet emission standards will be affected by the clean zone scheme. So daily charges for these heavy good vehicles, or HGVs, and buses are due to be rolled out from May 2022, with other vehicles affected by May 2023. So tackling pollution cannot be ignored anymore, and the region's mayor has been saying all these things. And Andy Burnham went on to add that coming out of the pandemic, I think we've got to get a lot more serious about people's health and health inequalities that we have in this country, in this city region, and across the country. And we shouldn't accept any more things that harm the health of our residents. So with that regards, we have to be talking about this particular thing. And it's a fact that it's poorest kids in the poorest communities that have to breathe in the most polluted of air. And that has given rise to concern, and that has given rise to a lot of problems that have affected a lot of these people and these especially in these particular areas. So leaders from 10 local authorities will be asked to endorse the city's region's clean air plan at the next Greater Manchester Combined Authority, or the GMCA, meeting on the 25th of June. So this will be followed by approval by individual councils at their meeting. So under the plans, the HGVs, buses, and coaches will be charged £60 a day to drive within the zone, with vans paying £10 a day, and taxis and private hire vehicles paying £7.50 a day. So that is, that for me, that is incredible. I don't know how long and is it going to be a very feasible thing is the question. So failure to pay will result in £120 fine on top of the original fee. So on top of that, if you don't pay, if you are driving a bus or a coach or HGV, well, you'll have to pay £60 a day daily. And if you do miss it, well, you will be forced to pay 120 plus that 60. So that will be £180 on top of this whole original fee. So privately owned vehicles will not fall under the clean air zone scheme. I mean, that does raise the question, though. That is a little fishy right there. But yeah, the zone, it was supposed to come into effect this year, but was delayed due to the COVID pandemic and a standoff between councils and the government over funding, said the local democracy reporting scheme. So the GMCA has now received £150 million to help businesses and individuals with their transitions. So all we got to know, we'll see only how they move forward with this particular matter and how they're going to be discussing about all these things. And that's when we will really know, what the exact point of a matter is. So like I said, about £120 million of the funding will help drivers pay for new, cleaner, compliant vehicles or upgrade their old ones. So the remainder of the money will fund infrastructure such as cameras to monitor the roads. So drivers of these HGVs, coaches, and buses will be able to apply for up to £16,000 to retrofit their vehicles from November. So from November onwards, there will be plans to retrofit a lot of these vehicles and make sure that they transition into more greener vehicles and more eco-friendly vehicles. These are things that they are saying. So also that though, taxis, private hire vehicles, lorries, and minibuses can bid for up to £5,000. So taxi and private hire drivers of vehicles which meet Euro 6 emission standards will also be allowed to continue using their cars and will not need to switch to electric vehicles. So charges came into force last week for drivers entering Birmingham's clean air zone, while Liverpool has moved closer to introducing a congestion charge for the city center as part of the efforts to improve air quality. So, these are just, things that is happening. And in case you guys are wondering, what is this whole Birmingham clean air zone? Well, that happened back almost a week ago. This was talked about of how Birmingham has initiated this particular thing and this initiative where, they were charging people with a lot of this money going on. And the charges have come into force for drivers entering Birmingham's clean air zone. So this is a particular air zone that they've designated. Rather, this place has been designated as a clean air zone. This is what the air zone in Birmingham. So the zone was officially launched on the 1st of June, but there was a 2-week delay to charges to give motorists time to adjust. So they gave motorists and a lot of these, vehicle drivers time to adjust to all of this phase. So from midnight BST on Monday, drivers of a vehicle not meeting emission standards and without an exemption will face a daily fee. So they will be forced to pay a daily fee as well. So it comes as a false suspended tram services until the end of Monday. So city conservatives had called for CAZ charges to be further delayed due to the issues. So right now, the clean air zone, they want this to be delayed even further because of, issues when it comes to all these things, when it comes to the suspended charges of traveling in the tram and all of that. They've been talking about this particular thing, and all roads inside the A4540 Middleway Ring Road fall into this zone, but the circular route itself is not included. So looking at all this, they have decided, okay, that we've designated this particular point in Birmingham a clean air zone. I mean, that's a great thing, a great initiative. There's going to be less vehicles, less pollution, and less traffic is one of the most important things. And at the launch of the scheme, the local authority confirmed it would pause payments to allow more people and organizations to apply for an exemption or financial incentive. So the daily charge for vehicles that do not meet standards is £8 for cars, vans, and taxis, or 50 for HGVs and coaches, unless a valid exception is in place. So the zone is enforced using automatic number plate recognition, or ANPR, which records the registration plates of vehicles traveling within the ring road. So anyone who fails to pay within 6 days after entering the zone faces a £120 fine. So Wazim Zafar, the Birmingham City Council's cabinet minister and member for transport and environment, said the clean air zones will help to address the single biggest environment risk to public health. And I have been clean from the beginning of the scheme that we want to make its introduction fair and reasonable as well. So, with that regards, he's saying that this is the things that we have tried to adjust to, and this is what we are also setting by example with that particular regard. And looking at all these things, they've been discussing about a lot of these things that is going on, and these are things that they are trying to address and they are trying to put forward, as they make the move along. Hopefully, this is something that will get solved and resolved in the coming of the weeks. And looking at all these things, about 75% of the cars not subject to charge, but Mr. Zafar has also urged drivers to check their plates and vehicles online before traveling. So local authority has previously said air pollution contributed to 900 premature deaths a year in the city, and it faced a 60 million fine if it failed to implement the zone. So these are just important matters that they've started in Birmingham, Greater Manchester, and hopefully in the next places in UK, they will spread this and they will make sure that this is implemented across the country. I mean, these are great initiatives, in my opinion, to get less and less drivers into these zones and into these particular areas. And looking at all this, these are good initiatives, I feel, that will help in the greater sense. I mean, there will be drivers who don't really care about that fun, but then, like I said, 120 pound. Like whenever you get fined for 120 pounds, it does get annoying. So you'll have to make sure that your number plates and your vehicles meet up to that requirement. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, and we'll be right back after this. Taking a look at your time right now, it is 4:35. Good evening
again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about how the generation gap, how much has changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, I'd say to me, you had one to forget.
That's it. Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well in the UK. You get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid, I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Variety is the spice of our station.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter. Yeah, these are my only intentions.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio, where we're talking about all the real stuff that is going on in the UK and the situation that is happening all across the country. And if you're wondering who this is, I am Nick, and I'm keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all the things that is happening, and we're trying to keep it real. And also, if you want to be part of the show, it's pretty simple. All you got to do is hit us up on those numbers. It is 07852 473. That's right. Those are the magic numbers. And also don't forget, you can download the app from the Apple App Store and Google Play Store to carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, we have been talking about, what is going on in the UK and all the situation and how, they have been plans to implement a clean air zone. Yeah, these are things that the UK right now, the government has been planning on. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is something that can go to, hopefully this is something that can actually, that can be implemented across the world. And speaking about the world right now, looking at things overseas, well, Tokyo 2020 is up to 10,000 fans. Our Japanese fans will be permitted at the Olympic venue. So right now, that is something that is happening. And in case you guys are wondering what is going on with that, well, that particular matter, the Tokyo 2020 Olympics are happening, and up to 10,000 Japanese fans will be permitted at the Tokyo 2020 Olympic venues, despite warning from healthcare bosses. So from health bosses, they've been talking about all these things, and they're saying that this is not a real great idea, but fans are still gonna go anyway. So overseas spectators are already banned, but organizers said domestic fans could attend, providing crowds did not exceed 50% of venues capacity. And looking at that, fans will not be allowed to shout or speak loudly and must wear face masks at all times while in venues. Now, that's pretty hard thing to decide on and to say, okay, the fans, we're going to make sure and we're going to implement a rule where a lot of these fans will not be allowed to shout or to scream or to even do anything loud. So that is the crux of the matter. I mean, that's not something that is feasible in my opinion. And looking at all these things, the Olympics are scheduled to begin on the 23rd of July, while the Paralympics follow a month later from the 24th of August. So spectator numbers for the Paralympics will be confirmed by the 16th of July, said a joint statement from the International Olympic Committee, or the IOC. So the International Paralympic Committee, the Tokyo 2020 Organization Committee, the Tokyo Metropolitan Government, and the government of Japan. So after that, they will come up with a joint statement with regards to this. And the decision to allow spectators comes despite the release of a report last week by Japanese medical experts that said holding the games without spectators was the least risky and most desirable option. But unfortunately, people are still going to be attending these venues, these big venues. So, this is unfortunately something that is happening. And looking at this, they went on to say the Tokyo 2020 Organizing Committee President Seiko Hashimoto said there are so many cases domestically and internationally of sports events with spectators. By exercising thorough measures and based on the government's criteria, we believe we can hold the games with spectators, is what they're saying. And they say, okay, I mean, are the Japanese, disciplined in that particular matter? Yes, but then we have to remember they are people as well. They do make mistakes. And they went on to say the entire world is facing this same issue, and we have to work together to overcome them. So delegates and sponsors will be classed as organizers and therefore will not be included in the 10,000 spectator limit. Should there be a rapid increase in the COVID-19 infections and impact on Japanese healthcare systems, the five parties will consider further restrictions. So if there's going to be an increase in the virus right now, what's going to happen is there will be a further increase on the restrictions, and Japanese people in Japan, rather domestically, will be faced with more restrictions, and they won't be able to attend the original seating, which is less than 50% of the stadium. So with that regards though, this could further reduce the spectator numbers, like I said, in these particular venues. But there are fears that the games may trigger a surge in coronavirus infections in Japan. So right now there has been talk about that. There has been worries about that particular matter. And, with that, they have been talking about this. And looking at all these things, they've been saying that as a result, Prime Minister Yoshida Suga last week encouraged the Japanese public to watch the game on television rather than attending events in person. So on Sunday, a state of emergency in Tokyo was lifted 5 weeks before the start of the Olympics. So emergency COVID-19 restrictions had been in place in Japan's capital and other prefectures since late April amid a surge in infections. However, some quasi-emergency measures will remain in some areas, including Tokyo, until the 11th of July. So on Saturday, a Ugandan athlete became actually the first to test positive for the COVID-19 on arrival in Japan. So that is unfortunate. They found out that there was already one person who was coming to Japan, and he's already had tested positive for the COVID-19. So that's really unfortunate. You can see the situation like that. So organizers rather have been saying there will be a cap at each of these venues, but it's a little more complicated than that because, those are spectators with tickets that they've got through the lottery system. So there will be other groups coming in as well. So there are VIPs, corporate guests, who counted as coming from the organizing side, and we don't even know how many of them may be attending exactly. So there have been reports here for the opening ceremony on 23rd of July. There could be as many as 10,000 VIP guests and corporate guests as well. So on Monday, organizers said they don't think that it would be that many, but they did acknowledge that it would be more than 10,000. Because look, I mean, we have to be honest here. 10,000 people will attend the event, will attend the Olympics, but at the same time, we have to understand that these exclude actually the people who are known as organizers, people who sponsor all these things. Well, they won't be included in this 10,000. So that is unfortunate because there will be a lot of VIP guests and corporate guests as well who will be invited to these events, and they will be these particular people won't be counted as 10,000. So we just have to see, how the situation goes. And as the Olympics have been, right now the situation in Japan, as the Olympic Games have been approaching, coronavirus numbers have been falling. So on average, about 1,400 new COVID infections are being reported every day, according to scientific online publications, Our World in Data. So in mid-May, that number was more than 6,000 a day across Japan. So in the host city of Tokyo, experts have said that the infection rates should be below 100 in order to hold the games safely. So right now they're saying, okay, this in the whole city of Tokyo, they say that at least in the city, the number of people who are infected should be less than 100. There should be less than 100 cases in the country is what they're trying to say, and they're trying to address this, and they're trying to point this out, and they're saying then it'll be more safer. However, the city's health authorities reported 376 new infections on the 20th of June, and the average for the last 7 days is 388 new cases a day, which has been stable for the past 10 days. So this followed a decrease in the number of infections from the end of May, broadly matching the national picture. So as the country battled a surge of new infections in May, hospitals in many areas were overwhelmed. So large parts of Japan have been under a state of emergency, giving the authorities greater powers to enforce COVID restrictions. So a mass vaccination campaign was started in Tokyo and Osaka as infections rose, but currently only about 16% of the country has been population. That is really poor for a country that is, that prides itself in its economy. Well, we'll have to see, how they are going to handle this. And it's really unfortunate that they couldn't cancel the whole thing. They couldn't cancel the whole Olympics, the 2020 Olympics, and why they couldn't cancel it is just really baffling in my personal opinion. And they might have their reasons. They can say all they want, but why it's not being canceled is just really, for me, it's a baffling thing. I don't really know why it's not being, it's just being, the reason why it's still being called and why it's still even being happening is not really understandable. So it won't happen. It's not to do with, signing around Tokyo or the amount of promotional materials already distributed. It's all about the marketing and the branding. So this is one of the reasons why it's also not being canceled as of yet. There's going to be talk about all these things and a whole lot more. So make sure you guys tune in for that. And with that, if you have anything you want to say or you want to hit me up, well, you know what to do. You know the numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. And also don't forget, you can check us out on our social media platforms. Yeah, that's right. We're on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're pretty much on YouTube as well. So make sure you guys share, subscribe, like, and follow us. And yeah, hit that like button. Definitely hit that like button. And check us out on Instagram as well. We have a lot of great content on there. And with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break. Taking a look at your time. It is 4:50. Good evening. Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. If you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that will improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now. So Yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Variety is the spice of our station.
Picture perfect, you don't need no filter. Yeah, these are my only intentions.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to the show. This is Relax Radio, RELAKS, with none other than me, Nick, keeping you guys company and keeping you guys on a ride all the way until 6 p.m. We were talking about all the interesting things that is going on in the world, in the UK, and with the Olympics and all of that jazz that is going on. And if you guys want to be part of the show, it's simple. It's pretty simple. All you got to do is simply call us up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. Yeah, that's right. We're going to be talking about all the things that is going on right now. And looking at the situation in Scotland, well, Nicola Sturgeon has been coming up on a lot of fire as of late. Yeah, there's been a lot of fire with that regards. So she's been defending her Manchester travel ban. So Nicola Sturgeon's First Minister has defended the ban on non-essential travel with Manchester and Salford after an angry reaction from the area's mayor. So there has been talk also with this particular regard, and she has been facing a little bit of a backlash with that particular matter. And looking at these things, Greater Manchester's Mayor Andy Burnham accused the Scottish government of hypocrisy over the move. And but Nicola Sturgeon said the decision was a public health measure based on COVID levels in the area. So politicians rather in Scotland received. They said that there have been a lack of consistency and a lack of consultations. However, Miss Sturgeon went on to say that who received her second vaccine in Glasgow on Monday said she had a duty to keep Scotland as safe as possible. I mean, that is in a way hypocritical. If you really look at it, it's really hypocritical because the situation, they had the Eurozone 2020 in Glasgow. So, and right after, like barely a week after the lockdown was, rather not the lockdown was lifted, but rather they went down from level 3 to level 2. So I don't really see how that is even going on. So she went on to say, though, that I've always got well. She's had really good ties with Andy Burnham. And if he wants a grown-up conversation, he only has to pick up the phone. But she suspects there might be the case that this is more about getting a spat with them in positioning, in this whole labor leadership situation. So the First Minister said she was confused by Mr. Burnham's position. So these are just, the talk, and they've been going back and forth about this particular matter, and there's been a lot of heat with that regards. And Mundo Fraser, the Scottish Conservative spokesperson for COVID recovery, said Mr. Burnham was absolutely correct to express concern about the ban and the lack of consultation. So with that regards, he did say that this is something that, that has to be addressed. And with that, he's been saying that we know that the city of Dundee, for example, has cases rates very similar to Manchester. So why is there a travel ban being introduced for Scots going to Manchester, but there's no similar restriction put in relation to Dundee? So they want to know, okay, these are the things you've talked about, these things. Well, we want explanations. Okay, the numbers and the cases have been rising. Fine, you put a lockdown or you put travel restrictions to Manchester. Well, why not put it to these places as well, to the city of Dundee as well? Why is that not being addressed? So right now they said that the cases have been similar when it comes to the city of Dundee, the Manchester and Salford areas. They've been having similar case rates, and looking at the statistics of all of that. And Dundee, which has the highest COVID cases rate in Scotland, recorded 487 new cases in the week up to the 18th of June. And this is all according to the UK government's figures. And they've come up to this particular point and they've discussed about this. And they said, okay, these are the numbers. It's not really that big of a difference when it comes down to the two places. And Manchester has recorded 1,928 cases and Salford 880 in the same period, but the rate per 100,000 people for all three areas is very similar. So Jack Bailey, the deputy leader of the Scottish Labour, said people would find the ban hard to understand. And Jackie went on to say that this had been put in place without any consultation and without any dialogue and without any concern for either the people of Manchester or the tourism industry in Scotland. So are we consistent in saying it's okay to travel in and out of areas of Scotland where the rates of infections are higher than they are in Manchester? That's the inconsistency that people just do not understand. They want to know, they need explanation with this particular regard. And they're saying, okay, how does this justify what you did? I mean, how does this ban justify anything? If you look at the particular matter and how, there are cases and the rising cases, okay, fine. There's 1,900 cases in Manchester and in just 487 in Dundee. But if you check into the 100,000 ratio, there is almost all three of these places, Salford, Manchester, and Dundee, come up to the same. And this is very similar. And they say, okay, how come you tell us not to travel to these Manchester areas, but we can travel to the Dundee? What's the explanation for that? And people are confused and they want an explanation. So looking at all these things, Deputy First Minister John Sweeney said that the provisions that have been put in place were consistent with approaches taken in the area previously. So non-essential travel was banned between Scotland and Bolton in Greater Manchester and Blackburn with Darwin in Lancashire on the 24th of May. So Mr. Burnham said he would be writing on to the Scottish government to ask how it would compensate businesses in Manchester who could lose bookings. So a lot of these places in Manchester are going to be losing bookings because there has been tourism. Like I said, there has been a rise in local tourism. People have been trying to travel in the country, and because of that, these places are going to be affected, majorly affected, and they're not giving a conclusive answer to this. So Mr. Sweeney said that that would not be appropriate. Asked whether similar travel restrictions should be introduced in Dundee, Mr. Sweeney said the Scottish government would need to look very carefully at the localized situation. So also, looking at all these things, they have been discussing about these things, and on Sunday, the UK reported another 9,284 COVID cases, including 7,700 cases for England and 1,205 for Scotland, and a further 6 deaths within 28 days of testing positive. So both nations have seen a rise in the 7-day infection rate, with the Scottish infection rate at 128 per 100,000 people and 86 per 100,000 people in England. So Northwest England had the highest proportion of people in England, and right now they've had the highest proportion of people who had been likely to test positive for the virus in the week to the 12th of June at the rate of about 1 in 108 people. So Scotland, which has the highest infection rates in Europe right now, but also one of the highest vaccination rates, has paused the lifting of COVID restrictions this summer because of the rising cases. So, right, like I said, their whole plan is to get it hopefully by the time mid-July. Between mid-July, their plan is to lift all of these bans. Right now, they're not doing that because they have seen a certain kind of rise. But people have, like I said, have been throwing a lot of shade to the First Minister Nicola Sturgeon with this particular regard, and they want to know and they demand an explanation. And hopefully she can find a way to answer that, because it is a little bit of a hypocrisy when you look at the situation. I mean, you're telling us we can't travel to X, Y, and Z, but when you figure out that your own town, your own neighborhood has even worse cases, how come you're not banning that? I mean, that's the thing that they are talking about. They want to know, okay, why is that not being addressed? How come they are getting more of a leniency than these other particular places? So these are just, things that they are discussing. Hopefully they will, come up with a solution to this particular matter and explain and come up with a better answer. In my opinion, I hope they find a better answer when it comes down to all of this. And looking at also the other things that is going on in the UK right now, we have been discussing about a lot of these the school issues and all that. The Scottish qualification authorities to be scrapped after the OECD review. So right now there's going to be a big review with that particular matter. So schools will be expecting the Scottish schools and syllabuses will be changed accordingly. And with that regards, they've been talking about how it's going to be replaced as a part of a substantial overhaul of education following an independent review. So the government said these changes would be made in response to the OECD or the OSIS report on Curriculum for Excellence, or the CFE. So it backed this curriculum as a whole, but said there was too much focus on exams in later years of schooling. And they're saying that is a problem that we need to address, and we have to change and review the whole education system. And I see that as a win, in my opinion. I mean, it's great to see like they are doing like these changes that need to be done. And it backed like they said, the exam body is to be broken up and replaced with pupils, parents, and teachers to be consultant on these changes. So they're going to have a wide discussion with regards to this. And school agencies, Education Scotland is to be shaken up, with responsibility for school inspections to be split off to a new independent system. And looking at all of this, the independent review report from the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, was commissioned by the Scottish government in 2019, but pushed back due to COVID-19 crises. So right now, the pandemic has brought a lot of focus on the school qualification system, with criticism of how grades have been decided after formal exams were cancelled 2 years in the running. So the long-awaited review backed the curriculum as a whole, but said there was a misalignment between its aims and the narrow focus on exams in later years. So they said it's the visionary ideas of the curriculum which were meant to be focused on producing more well-rounded individuals rather than teaching to tests had not fully succeeded, with the qualification system a barrier to aim its to the secondary education. And they're saying these are big issues, these are big matters. And we're going to be talking about this, as we go along in the show, and we're going to be talking about how they're looking for action from the Scottish government with this particular regard. But make sure you guys keep it locked right here on Relaks Radio, where the fun never stops. And with that, taking a look at your time right now, it is 5:05. Good evening.
Again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Well, you didn't do very well. And they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young. Well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he'd say to me, "You had one to forget." That's it.
Your dad sounds like a smart guy. I mean, yeah, that's the real fact of the matter. Yeah.
He'd say to me, "You had one to forget. Get over it," and that was it. So I'd dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, "You've had one to forget," God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me. Why did you reject my son? Oh, I haven't rejected your son. or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid, I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
sipping, that's how I control.
Radio at its best. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio with me, Nick, keeping you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. And in case you guys are wondering what's the situation like in the whole UK and EU situation about the whole Brexit thing and how Northern Ireland and the whole chilled meat thing, well, you've come to the right place. I'm Nick. I'm going to keep you guys up to date with that particular matter. And if you want to be part of the show, it's simple. All you got to do is hit me up on those numbers. 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can only feel free to call me. And also don't forget, you can also check us out on our social media pages. That's right, we're pretty much on Facebook, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Subscribe, like, and follow. And don't forget to download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And getting back to the matter at hand right now, UK's request on a meat ban will give a chance for calm. So the Republic of Ireland's European Commissioner has said the UK's request for a postponement of a ban on some British meat products being sold in Northern Ireland provides a chance for calm and common sense. So Maynard McGuinness made the comments to the British Irish Chamber of Commerce, and exports of these chilled meats from Great Britain to Northern Ireland are due to be banned at the end of June under the terms of the NI protocol. In case you guys are wondering, that is the Good Friday Protocol. And the UK has asked for the deadlines to be extended until the end of September. Earlier this year, like I said, they tried to do this unilaterally without any consent from the EU, and the EU is not going to oblige by that. And they did say that they were going to make the legal mitigations when it comes to this particular matter. And they said, okay, the UK has been asked for all these things, and the UK has asked for the deadline to be extended. And earlier this year, the UK also did another thing where they unilaterally extended other protocol grace periods, which contributed to a worsening and rather straining relationship with the EU. So the EU has said these actions by the UK breached the Brexit withdrawal agreement and international law because it was not consulted. They did not even consult the EU about this. So they're saying the UK has done all these decisions without consulting with us. And, since it's an agreement, you have formed an agreement with this. So you have to abide by its law. So against international law, UK went and broke it. So the EU has been talking about all these things. And last week, UK formally requested an extension of the chilled meats grace periods. So the European Commission has asked the UK for an urgent meeting to discuss the request. So right now they are open to requests. They're open to a meeting, and they're open to suggestions on how the situation can be alleviated. And looking at that, Ms. McGuinness said the EU will try to resolve the sensitive issues in Northern Ireland and hopes the protocol can be depoliticized over time. And they're saying, okay, with that regard, hopefully this is something that we can address. And looking at this, the Northern Ireland Protocol, which is part of the Brexit deal, which keeps Northern Ireland in the single EU, single market goods, has been having an issue right now. The EU does not generally permit the import of chilled meat products like mince and sausages from non-member states. So the UK is saying that since they're not a member state right now, we want to keep doing this. So as a grace period, until September, give us time, and then we will make sure that we transition over. So since January, producers in Great Britain have not been able to sell those products in the EU. However, in December 2020, the EU agreed to a 6-month grace period to allow supermarkets in Northern Ireland to reorientate supply chains away from Great Britain. So the UK has asked the EU to extend a grace period for chilled meats until the end of September. And in recent weeks, the issue had been growing, and they're seeing tensions between the UK and the EU, with the EU refusing to rule out a unilateral extension of the grace period. So in case you guys are wondering, there were arguments about this, and it did intensify. It did get crazy. It did get really heated up. And with that, about this whole post-Brexit status of Northern Ireland. So it's a special case, though, involving the UK's only land border with the EU and a history of violent political divisions. So this is the main problem right now, is the present system can't cope with the number of checks required on goods entering Northern Irish ports from Great Britain. So the UK government has unilaterally extended a series of grace periods. But even so, the authorities in Northern Ireland are still struggling to deal with demand. So Northern Ireland's chief vet Robert Huey said in April his team was conducting more checks on products of animal origin moving across the Irish Sea than France was all over its ports. So it was also conducting 325 documentary checks every day. He said they went on to say, Robert Huey went on to say this, and while Rotterdam, one of the busiest ports in the world, had only 125. So 325 documentary checks every day. And the world's busiest port is not even getting that much. It's not even getting half of that. So that's just crazy. So this is partly because of the containers arriving in Rotterdam are full of one commodity. So if you're bringing in minced meat, it's going to be meat only. If they're bringing in maybe shoes, it's going to be shoes only. It's going to be something like that with one particular commodity. But what is happening here is the reason there is issues with this is supermarket lorries crossing from Great Britain to Northern Ireland contain multiple loads. There's a lot of these other things mixed in, all of which might need to be checked. So a lot of these products have to be checked and have to be looked into before they can certify and make sure that it travels across the border. So Northern Ireland's Department of Agriculture, Environment and Rural Affairs, or the DAERA, said that a weekly average of 2,460 documentary checks, 2,200 identity checks, and 170 physical checks were being carried out in the 6 weeks period from 21st of April to the 6th of June. So if all the current grace periods expired, Mr. Huey said his team would need to conduct nearly as many checks on foods as were being conducted in the whole of the EU. And he has only 12 vets. So is there any solutions to all of these things that people want to know? Okay, right now, the UK is, like I said, getting into discussions, and they are broaching on this particular matter with the UK. And the UK has been talking with EU with this regards, and they want to know, can we come to a position? And right now, what's looking at all these things, right now, what is looking like the most possible thing will be a Swiss style solution. Hopefully this is something that they are saying that they've discussed, and the EU says many of the problems would disappear if the UK agreed temporarily to follow the EU's veterinary arrangements. So it said it has suggested that an agreement a bit like the one it has with Switzerland. So this would remove all of the border checks and veterinary declarations for Britain food entering Northern Ireland or the EU. And the EU says, okay, it would reduce total checks by 80%. So in return, the UK, the United Kingdom, would have to abide by the EU's food hygiene rules, even when they change in the future. But the UK is refusing this, and they are saying, okay, we're not going to follow your rules just because you are saying this particular thing. And they don't want to abide by those rules. That's one of the main reasons why they did have Brexit, why Brexit happened, and they had to leave the whole European Union. So this is one of the reasons why they're staying away from the EU, from their rules. So there has been concern following the EU rules could make it harder to agree a trade deal with the United States. So this is one of the worries and the concerns that the UK has been having, even though there's no sign of an agreement on the horizon as of yet. There's no agreement so far, but they have been worried about this. So what's the legal argument about? Well, the UK says the EU is sticking to legal purity rather than seeking practical solutions, and it needs to show more flexibility in the way the protocol is implemented on the ground. So the government points to Article 6 of the protocol, which commits both sides to use their best endeavors to facilitate trade between Northern Ireland and Great Britain. This phrase carries significant legal weight because it means that both parties should take all measures any reasonable person would take to achieve the desired results. And the UK says the EU should therefore compromise far more in order to remove restrictions on trade. But the commitments, rather, to use best endeavors is not an absolute obligation or a guarantee. So that's not something that will happen. Although they say that this should happen like this, it's not going to be happening like that. In a fairy tale world, maybe. But in this world where it's going to be hard facts and it's going to be stuff like this, well, that is more of a different case and more of a different scenario. And the EU said that they will continue to stress it does not mean the UK can ignore the law. And they said the commitment, they said this is not an obligation or a guarantee. And they said that these protocols promises to allow unfeathered access for trade from Northern Ireland into Great Britain, but not the other way around. So it doesn't say border bureaucracy can be removed altogether. So right now they are facing legal issues because of this, but there is going to be a discussion. They are going to take seats and they're going to make sure that they talk and hash things out. Hopefully they can come to a more friendly and peaceful amicable rather compromise in this particular situation. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully this is something that will happen in the coming future. But with that being said, we're going to be taking a real quick break, taking a look at your time. It is 5:20. Good evening. Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there. You're quite right.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
and it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're riding? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts mainly because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. Yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Tripping, I've been sipping, that's how I control.
Radio at its best. Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio, RELAKS, with me, Nick, keeping you company all the way until the time that is 6 p.m. Yeah, until dusk is the correct, more correct matter of it. So yeah, in case you guys are wondering, there's a lot of these things happening right now in the UK, and we're talking about how the UK and the EU deals are reaching, and how there's been problems with that regard, and they have been talking about this, and this has been a discussion right now when it comes to the Northern Ireland issue. And hopefully, like I said, they will find a way to make sure that they can find a compromise to this particular matter. I hope I would really expect there would be some sort of compromise, because the EU can't be unreasonable, as we all think. Hopefully there will be something, as we go and move along in the coming of days, and they will find a way to make sure that they can investigate this and come to common grounds, is what I'd like to see. But anyways, looking at other things going on right now in around the world, the UN virtual talks make little progress whatsoever in the issue of climate change. Yeah, in case you guys are wondering, that's what's going on. That is also a topic that is being discussed at the moment. And if you want to be part of the show, all you got to do is simple. Hit us up. The numbers are 07852-473-473. That's right. You can always feel free to call us and let us know what your thoughts are. And like I said, the climate change, the UN virtual talks makes just a little bit of progress. There's nothing really substantial going on. And exhausted delegates have concluded that 3 weeks of virtual climate negotiations with little progress on key issues. And they're saying right now, for instance, like situations in Pakistan has been enduring an extreme heat wave that has taken a lot of lives. So these are things that they want to talk about, when it comes to the regards of climate change. And the UN subsidiary bodies meeting was meant to clear the decks ahead of the major COP26 gathering in Glasgow in November. However, technical glitches and multiple time zones scuppered attempts to find common ground. So ministers from 40 countries will meet in July to push the process forward. So developing nations are also concerned that a lack of vaccines may limit their ability to take part in the Glasgow conference. So the UK says, although it will ensure all accredited delegates will get their jabs ahead of the summit. And they're saying, okay, right now the delegates who do come for the COP26, well, they'll make sure that they enforce the rule and they get their vaccines as well ahead of the summits. So thanks to the pandemic, though, this virtual gathering was the first significant meeting of UN negotiators since December 2019, when COP25 ended in Madrid. So with that particular regards, they were talking about all these things, and they were saying, okay, this is how the situation is right now, and we're gonna make it virtual. We're gonna address this particular thing. However, that meeting though, it failed to find any sort of way to move forward on a lot of these issues, a number of issues and technical questions, including the role of carbon markets in curbing climate change. So despite an extended session that ran for 3 weeks of talks, there was a lot of these talks for 3 weeks. They were discussing, they're trying to come to a common ground, and these important issues has still not been resolved. So this was back in the COP25, and that never really happened. Nothing was really resolved. There was a talk, but there was no real substance to that particular matter. And the challenge of the delegates in differing time zones with varying internet connections made these difficult negotiations a real struggle. So, what with the data lags and the drops in the internet and all of that, there has been issues with this regards, and it's been difficult to negotiate. When it comes to negotiation, there's been a real challenge for a lot of these delegates. So looking at all this, Khurram Chaudhry, a climate negotiator from Bangladesh, said, I think this was technically challenging for many parties. Connectivity problems compounded and complicated the trust deficits that already exist. So even the low-hanging fruits could not be harvested, is what he's saying. And as long as the technical challenges, there will always be issues with access for observers, with China objecting to their presence at talks on transparency. So with a little movement from these negotiators, it will require ministerial intervention to push the process forward. So they're saying, okay, we're going to require some more of this. We're going to require more than a little move, from these negotiators. We will require more ministerial power and intervention. So the past 3 weeks have made one thing very clear, though, that the most dangerous stumbling blocks on the road to COP26 are political and not technical, said Jennifer Tolman, a senior policy advisor at the environmental think tank that is the E3G. So parties each know each other's positions. It's the will to find compromise options that drive ambitions that's frequently missing. And they say this is the main problem that we couldn't address in the COP25. And looking at all these, the technical challenges mean there is a strong appetite among delegates for face-to-face talks in Glasgow, and that they are going to be talking about those things, and they are going to be addressing in Glasgow about these things. However, the question of COVID-19, especially in developing countries and in developing nations, rather, many of them have had a lot of these concerns, is a key issue of concern for many of these countries. So COVID-19 remains a serious concern for many of us, and travel restrictions continue for many countries, said Ambassador Deanne Blacklearn of Antigua and Barbuda, who is a lead negotiator for the Alliance of Small Island States. So there has been significant talk about this, but the UK Minister Alok Sharma, who will chair the global gathering, has said that a news conference that delegates unable to get jabs from their own countries will get support from us, is what they're saying and what they're discussing about and what they're talking to. And they're, with that particular matter at hand, they have been discussing about this, and they have been talking about this particular matter. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully they can come, like I said, to a common ground with this particular issue. And looking at matters over, all these things included, and they're saying the details are being worked out at the moment in discussion with the UN, according to Mr. Sharma. So the incoming COP president says he hopes to speed up, and he says he hopes to speed up the climate talks process by hosting a ministerial meeting in London on the 24th in London in July, rather, on this particular meeting for about 40 countries. So across all these meetings, one issue keeps popping up to the surface, and that is the question of finance. The richer nations have promised £100 billion a year in climate finance for 2020. So the developed nations have still not succeeded in raising that total. So let's see how it goes. Hopefully they can come with a point, and they can come with a big game plan, and they can address this particular matter and issue with that concerning regarding, like I said, there's been a lot of these talks, and they say, going on with all this, Harjit Singh with the climate campaign group Climate Action Network International says history will not be rich to rich nations. If it will not be kind to rich nations if we do not step up and fulfill their climate action commitment. commitments. And we are already at a point where the world faces multiple crises. And the reality is that the rich world are offering a bandage when surgery is needed. I mean, that is the unfortunate situation. And that is the unfortunate conversation with that particular matter. Let's see how it goes. Hopefully, they will come up with a game plan with that particular regard. I mean, these are only things, that is going on. And with the COP26 happening soon, they will most probably come up with a possible solution to implement with this particular regards, and hopefully they can address the key points in the COP26 that will be hosted in December in Glasgow. Let's see how it goes. And with that, before we go to the final stretch of the show, make sure you guys hit me up and call me. The numbers 07852-473-473. That's right. And follow us on Twitter for the latest of tweets, and download the app from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store. Carry us all day, every day. And with that being said, we are going to be taking a real quick break, and we will be right back after this. Taking a look at your time, it is 5:36. Good evening. Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It will make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, if you think about it, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you, if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there.
I've been doing this for quite some time. Hey, you'll get the hang of it.
I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. Okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son.
I want to talk about, how the generation gap, has how much it's changed, especially when you check the youth nowadays in comparison, to people back in the day.
I'd say when I was younger, it was more disciplined. Not now.
In comparison to now.
Not at all. Not now. The way things are nowadays, the younger generation, you seem that they can't accept the word no. If that makes sense. They can't
accept rejection, essentially, is all you're trying to say.
Yeah, they can't accept the word no. So if you, how did I do? Or you didn't do very well, and they get upset, And when I was a youngster, my father used to say to me, because I used to be sport mad when I was very young, well, I still am sport mad, but like participating in different sports. And if I had a bad game, for example, he might say to me, you had one to forget. That's it.
Yeah, that sounds like a smart guy. I mean, that's the real fact of the matter, yeah.
He'd say to me, you had one to forget. Get over it. And that was it. So I dust myself down and do it again. But now, if you say to a child, if I went up to a child and said, you've had one to forget, God, there'd be an inquest. An inquest. Me, why did you reject my son? Well, I haven't rejected your son. Or daughter. I've just told them that they need to buck their ideas up.
That's the truth right there. I mean, if you think about it, if you check the generations, like right now in the US as well, I've seen a lot of these things as well. In the UK, you get medals for participation. But what's the point? What are you trying to? Yeah, what's the point? Either you win or you lose. People are so afraid to put that whole notion of losing. When it comes to right now, the generation gap is just crazy. How much a lot has changed. Social media has taken control of our lives, and we don't even realize it anymore. We're crippled because of it.
That's absolutely right, Nick. Because, as you said, nowadays it seems that you get rewarded for failure. For the life of me, Nick, I can't get my head around that. Perhaps I'm just getting old and morbid. I don't know. I just can't get my head around how you could be rewarded for failure.
Relax Radio.
Welcome back to Relax Radio. This is the final segue right here, and you are tuning in with me, Nick, giving you guys company all the way until 6 p.m. That's right. We're talking about all the things that is going on in the UK. And if you want to be part of the show, all you got to do is simple. Hit me up on those numbers, 07852-473-473. That's right. Those are the magical numbers. You can always feel free to call me up and let me know if you guys have any thoughts on that particular matter. And looking at all these things that is going on right now is like I said, we were talking about a lot of, we were broaching on a lot of different topics, and we were discussing about how the issue is at hand right now. And looking at the situation, there has been talks with regards to the delay in the country right now, the delay in the lockdown, and how situation is looking good. And Matt Hancock actually went on to, and he's hoping to scrap isolations for double jab contacts, is what he's trying to say. He's like, we're hoping that we don't have to get into isolation anymore, and we can get the whole double jab situation in order, and we can make sure that we implement that, is what he's trying to address in this particular topic. And with that said, he did say the health secretary went on to say that he said he has hopes to fully exempt fully vaccinated people from the requirement to isolate for 10 days if they come into contact with someone who has COVID. And a current trial is offering daily rapid tests as an alternative to isolation. And Matt Hancock said the approach would be adopted for people who had 2 doses of the coronavirus jab if the pilot was effective. If this pilot was effective, and this is something that is feasible and that can happen, well, we are looking to do something like this, and we are looking to make sure that we bring this into effect. And Matt Hancock went on to say all these things, and the Prime Minister said the government was also looking at using it for travelers. So for the travelers who did have double jabs, well, they don't have to isolate for 10 days if they come into contact. This is the things that they want to do. They want to exempt these people who have been fully vaccinated, and asked whether ministers were considering allowing double vaccinated travelers to be exempted from quarantine on their return to the UK if they took daily tests. Well, Boris Johnson said, and he told reporters, when it comes to travel, we'll certainly be looking at that. And he went on to say, but I want to stress that this is going to be, whatever happens, a difficult year for travel. I mean, look at it. I mean, he's not sugarcoating it. He is being honest. It is going to be a very difficult year for travel, especially with the sudden restrictions, sudden lifting of the restrictions, some sudden, imposing of restrictions, suddenly turning from green to red. In case you guys are wondering why I'm talking about colors, it's because of the traffic light system in the country. And with that, he's saying, these things that is something that's going to happen. This is something that we will address. And we'll just have to expect it, though, that this is going to be a very difficult year for a travel industry, for the tourism industry. And asked about all these things, he said, when it comes to travel, we'll be certainly looking into all of these things. And he says that although it's going to be a difficult year for travel, there will be hassle, there will be delays. And I'm afraid because the priority has to be to keep the country safe and to stop the virus coming back in, this is going to happen. So currently, people arriving in the UK from a country on the government's amber list must quarantine for 10 days, regardless of what they've had a corona jab or not. If you had one, doesn't really matter. You are required by law to get yourself isolated. And however, in England, an individual may be able to end their quarantine period early if they pay for an additional test under the test to release scheme. So if that is, you're doing your own test privately, you have a test even before that, just to make sure that, you don't have the coronavirus, is one of the things that they want to implement, and they're saying that they will do. However, Mr. Hancock did go on to say the government was piloting daily tests on an alternative to isolate for people whose with that particular reason. He says they want to isolate all the people who come into contact with someone who had a positive test for COVID. So they went on to say all these things. They said, okay, we want to isolate. We want to make sure that these particular people, well, they are going to be isolated from all of this. So they're not going to be required to isolate for 10 days because they have 2 doses of the vaccine, is what the particular matter is at hand, and what they're trying to discuss. And they're saying this is what the health secretary is trying to say. USA, Matt Hancock, has been trying to discuss this particular thing. And he went on to say, all these things. And he went on to say that we are piloting that now to check that will be effective. And it is something that we are working on, is what the health secretary is addressing at the moment. And he went and he continued discussing that we're not ready to be able to take that step further, but it's something that I want to see, and we will introduce subject to clinical advice as soon as it's reasonable to do so. And as part of a study by Public Health England and NHS Test and Trace launched in May, as many as 40,000 people. That's right. 40,000 people who have been in contact with someone who has tested positive for COVID will be given daily tests to gather evidence on alternatives to self-isolate. So right now, like I said, these are requirements that the government is asking for the people to make sure that, that they do this and that they come across with this. And these are things that is expected, because look, 40,000 people who've been in contact with someone who has been tested positive for COVID will be given daily tests to gather evidence on alternatives. They want another alternative. They're going to do data on this. And this is something that they might do, the test and trace by the NHS. And instead, contacts will be required to test themselves with a rapid lateral flow test every morning for 7 days, and will be allowed to leave their home if they test negative. So the trial is not expected to be completed until later in the summer. So like I said, these are things that they want to do. I mean, you have to understand, if you're coming from a country where you have gotten the vaccine and you've gotten both doses of vaccine, and you're still asked to do all of these things like self-isolate, and it does become a hassle, it does become a problem, and people want to address these particular things. And that is, like I said, of concern, and people don't like to follow all of these things. And we have to address all of these particular matters at hand. Like I said, the government is looking for ways to help the people who have been under isolation, who have been jabbed, who got both jabs of the vaccine, to be exempted from all of this isolation situation. But only time can tell. Once the government finds alternatives, hopefully they can implement this particular thing. And looking at all the things right now, all being asked about all the things, the Prime Minister did talk about all the affairs that is happening in the country, and they said that they're trialing all of these things and they want to see how it goes. Hopefully, the trial will not be completed until later in the summer, though. And looking at these things, though, he did say that currently anybody who has been told by the NHS Test and Trace that they are contact of somebody who has tested positive for the virus must self-isolate for 10 days. So if in case you have been contacted by the NHS, well, you better make sure that you stay isolated for 10 days. Otherwise, you will be penalized by this. The government will find a way to penalize you. And we want to avoid spreading the virus because, look, you've been in contact. Although it's not you in particular, there's still the possibility that you can have the virus. So why risk it? Just stay indoors and follow protocol. 10 days. It's just 10 days. So this is not, even though it does mean 10 days of isolation, this does not mean you're not leaving the house at all, even to buy food or medicines or for exercise. So you can do all of these things. You can buy food, you can buy medicine, and you can exercise. All these things apply, but the rule applies to people regardless of whether they received a coronavirus jab or not. So that is the particular matter. And that is the reason for concern, and why people are frustrated and annoyed, and they're like, okay, what's the point of even getting the vaccine if this is the situation, if we can't even walk around and you just do what we do, because we've taken the vaccine, we've made sure that we were vaccinated. So aren't we supposed to be protected against this is the question, and people want to know and they want answers. And looking at all these things so far, nearly 60% of all the adults in the UK, so looking at all the statistics and all of that, 60%, that is more than half of our population, adult population rather, has gotten both jabs of the COVID-19 vaccine. So that's great news right there. And there are more people vaccinated now, and more than 4 in 5 adults have had their first dose already. So just looking at all these things, you have to understand, in a couple of more weeks, hopefully 4 weeks more, we can make sure that everyone gets vaccinated. The whole country gets vaccinated. And this is something to look forward to with that regard. I mean, I would be glad that the government did buy us the people more time. We bought 4 more weeks before we can open up the country. So let's see how it goes. And this will buy us even more time to get more people vaccinated. So like I said, more than 1 million jabs were booked on Friday and Saturday in England after vaccinations opened to all over 18s. So meanwhile, the Prime Minister said plans to ease the COVID-19 restrictions in England on the 19th of July were looking good. And speaking on a visit to a laboratory in Hertfordshire, Mr. Johnson said, at the moment, it still looks to me as though 19th of July is a terminus point. And they're saying that this is something that will be the end point. And this is the point where we will be lifting the lockdown situation. And he asked whether he could about whether he could rule out further lockdowns this winter. He said, you can never exclude that there will be some new disease, some new horror that we simply haven't budgeted for or even accounted for. So that is smart, and if you when you think about that particular thing, that is also the truth and the hard facts as it is. And he went on to say, but looking at where we are, looking at the efficacy of the vaccines against all the variants that we can currently see. So Alpha, Delta, the lot of them, Kappa, I think it's good. It's looking good for the 19th of July to that terminus point. And he's been talking about all kinds. And he's saying, no matter what variant comes our way, it looks like it's going to be the 19th of July will definitely be the terminus point where we will be lifting lockdown. So the original data that the date the government had planned to remove all the legal limits on social contact in England was the 21st of June, but this had been delayed to allow more people to be vaccinated. However, some restrictions have been eased so far. So like I said, when it comes to weddings, before it was 30 a limit, now there's no limit to that. And according to venue size, and with visiting arrangements for care homes are changing, children can go to overnight trips in groups of 30, and pilots of large events like Eurozone 2020 games can continue. So these are just, some of the things and events that is happening all across the UK. So with that regards, though, it is about that time of the day, for me to bounce out of here. And don't worry, though, I'll catch you guys again tomorrow. It's the same time, same place. And we will definitely be having more real talk like this. And with that, my name is Nick. And until next time, take care, peace, and